A child should never be judged by the shoes on his feet, because one day, the person everyone ignored may be the only one who remembers who truly cared. The words were never spoken aloud that morning, but they were written in the quiet choice of a single father who had nothing to prove and everything to give. The shoe store was crowded with the restless energy of the day before school started. The air smelled of new leather, cardboard boxes, and fresh polish. Parents moved between aisles holding shopping lists, comparing prices, and searching for the perfect pair that would carry their children into a new school year. Behind the shelves, Ethan Carter carried another box of inventory into the stockroom. His work shirt was simple, his hands showed years of honest labor, and his name tag was slightly scratched from countless ordinary days. Most people walked past him without noticing. That was normal. Ethan had learned that quiet people were often the easiest to overlook. But he noticed everything. He noticed when a customer needed help reaching a shelf. He noticed when a child looked nervous. He noticed when someone felt invisible. And that was why he stopped when he heard a small voice near the fitting area. "Mom, maybe these are fine." The boy looked down at his old sneakers, their faded color showing every mile they had traveled. His name was Noah, and he stood beside his mother, holding a pair of shoes he had hoped to try on. Before they could sit down, a polished-looking parent nearby glanced over and whispered, "Those shoes are pretty worn out. Are they even going to buy anything?" The words were quiet, but the damage was loud. Noah lowered his eyes. A sales associate looked uncomfortable but said nothing. The store manager, Victor Hale, stepped forward with a professional smile that never reached his eyes. "We are expecting a very busy day," Victor said politely. "Perhaps we should focus on customers who already know what they need." It sounded reasonable. It sounded professional. But Ethan heard what was hidden beneath the words. Some people mattered more than others. Ethan slowly placed the inventory box down. "Excuse me," he said. Victor turned. "Ethan, you're supposed to be in the back." Ethan nodded calmly. "I know. I just think every customer deserves to be treated like they belong here." For a moment, the store became strangely quiet. Noah looked up, surprised that someone had noticed. Ethan walked over and picked up the shoe box the boy had been holding. "Let's see if we can find the right fit." Victor sighed. "Ethan, this isn't your department."
"No," Ethan replied softly.
"It's not." He looked at Noah. "But he's still a person." Those simple words carried further than Ethan expected. Across the store, a woman wearing a plain jacket and carrying a small handbag watched the scene carefully. Her name was Olivia Bennett, though nobody there knew that. To everyone else, she was just another mother shopping before school began. But she was actually the CEO of Bennett Footwear, visiting stores under a different name to see whether her company's values existed beyond the advertisements. She had heard many promises about respect and customer care. She wanted to know if they were real. Ethan did not know who she was. He did not know that every small decision was being noticed. He did not know that the woman watching him had the power to change his future. He only knew that a young boy was standing there feeling embarrassed because of something as simple as an old pair of shoes. Ethan opened another box and placed a new pair in front of Noah. "Try these." Noah hesitated. "I don't want to cause trouble." Ethan smiled gently. "You're not causing trouble. You're getting shoes." Then Ethan knelt down, not caring who was watching, and loosened the laces so Noah could try them comfortably. In that moment, the employee everyone ignored became the only person in the room truly seeing someone else. And behind the shelves, Olivia Bennett watched silently, realizing the test she came to find had already begun. The store had not become quieter after Ethan Carter knelt beside Noah with a pair of new shoes. If anything, the silence had become heavier. People were still moving through the aisles, still comparing sizes and prices, but something in the atmosphere had changed. A small moment that most people would have forgotten had suddenly exposed something much bigger. Noah sat on the bench, carefully trying on the shoes Ethan had brought from the shelf. His fingers touched the clean laces as if he was afraid they might disappear. "They feel different," Noah said softly. Ethan smiled. "That is because they are supposed to fit you, not the other way around." Noah looked down at his old sneakers beside him. The worn soles, the faded fabric, the marks from countless walks. They were not just shoes. They were a reminder of every time he had tried to make do with what he had. A few feet away, Victor Hale watched with a tight expression. He did not raise his voice. He did not need to. People like Victor had learned that control often came from sounding calm. "Ethan," he said, walking closer. "I appreciate your kindness, but you are creating confusion during one of our busiest hours." Ethan looked up. "I am helping a customer find a pair of shoes." Victor adjusted his sleeve and smiled slightly. "You are an inventory employee. Your responsibility is the stockroom." The message was clear. Stay invisible. Do not step outside your place. Ethan stood slowly. He was not angry. He had spent years learning that anger rarely solved anything. "Sometimes the things that need fixing are not in the stockroom," he said. A few customers nearby looked over. Victor paused for half a second, then returned to his polished customer service voice. "We have standards here, Ethan. Every employee has a role." From behind another shelf, Olivia Bennett listened carefully. She noticed something important. Victor never said the word kindness. He never mentioned the child. He only talked about rules. That was the first crack she saw. Ethan looked at Noah, then at his mother. "I can help you find another size if you want." Noah's mother gave a grateful smile. "Thank you. We were starting to think we should leave." Ethan nodded. "You should never feel like you do not belong in a place that sells something meant for everyone." Those words stayed with Olivia. She had spent years building a company around a simple idea. That a brand was not just what it sold, but how it treated people when nobody important was watching. Yet here she was, standing in one of her own stores, watching the difference between a slogan and a human being. Victor walked back toward the front counter, but before he left, he glanced at Ethan. "Do not make this a habit." Ethan did not respond. He simply turned back to Noah and checked the fit of the shoes. He pressed gently near the front of the shoe and asked, "Do your toes have enough room?" Noah nodded. "Yeah. Good. Comfortable matters more than looking expensive." Olivia watched that moment closely. It was not dramatic. There was no speech, no attempt to impress anyone. Just a father-like act of care from a man who had nothing to gain. Then something unexpected happened. Noah looked toward the mirror and smiled for the first time that morning. He stood up and took a few careful steps across the carpet. "Mom, look." His mother's eyes softened. "They look great." Ethan stepped back and let the family have the moment. He did not ask for praise. He did not wait for gratitude. He simply returned the empty box to the shelf and started walking back toward the stockroom. That was when Olivia noticed something else. On the counter beside the shoes was a small receipt. She looked closer. The customer name was not attached to a company account. It was a personal purchase. Ethan had paid for the shoes himself. Olivia picked up the receipt carefully. The amount was small, but the meaning behind it was not. The man everyone treated like the least important employee had quietly done something most people would never do when nobody was watching. And for the first time that day, Olivia Bennett wondered if the real problem in her company was not the service people received. It was the people who had forgotten what service was supposed to mean. The receipt remained in Olivia Bennett's hand for only a few seconds, but in those seconds, she learned more about Ethan Carter than any company report could have shown her. The purchase was simple. One pair of children's shoes, paid with his own money. No employee discount. No company account. No expectation of recognition. Just a quiet decision made in a crowded store. Olivia placed the receipt back on the counter and watched Ethan return to the stockroom. He moved the same way he had before, carrying boxes, organizing shelves, becoming almost invisible again. That was what surprised her the most. He had just done something meaningful, and then he went back to work as if nothing important had happened. Most people wanted to be seen when they did something good. Ethan seemed more comfortable when nobody noticed. "Mom!" Noah's voice brought Olivia back. She looked at her son, who was still standing in front of the mirror wearing the new shoes. "Do they feel okay?" she asked. Noah nodded. "They feel like they were made for me." Olivia smiled softly. It was a simple sentence from a child, but it carried a weight she understood. For years, she had watched companies compete over numbers, sales, and reputation. But this moment was not about a product. It was about how someone made another person feel. Before leaving the fitting area, Olivia decided to observe a little longer. She wanted more than one moment. A single act of kindness could be genuine, but she needed to understand whether Ethan was different because of the situation or because of who he truly was. She walked toward another section of the store and watched quietly. A few minutes later, an elderly customer struggled to reach a box on the top shelf. Several employees noticed but continued with their tasks. Ethan saw her from across the room. Without being asked, he walked over and helped her find the correct size. "Thank you," the woman said. "I thought I was going to have to climb up there myself." Ethan smiled. "I am glad you did not. Those shelves are not made for anyone to reach comfortably." Olivia noticed the pattern. He did not help only when a manager was watching. He did not help only when someone could reward him. He simply helped. Meanwhile, Victor Hale stood near the register speaking with two employees. His voice was low, but Olivia was close enough to hear. "We have to be careful," Victor said. "Customers judge a store by the people they see inside it." One employee asked, "You mean appearance?" Victor quickly corrected himself. "I mean presentation. We are a premium brand." Olivia heard the careful choice of words. She heard what he avoided saying. She had spent years learning the difference between a mistake and a belief. This was not just one bad decision. It was a mindset. Ethan eventually returned from the stockroom carrying another box. Victor stopped him. "Ethan, a word." Ethan placed the box down. "Sure." Victor lowered his voice. "You cannot keep stepping into situations like that. We need employees to follow procedure." Ethan nodded. "I understand." Victor seemed satisfied for a moment. "Good." Then Ethan added, "But I hope our procedures never tell us to ignore someone who needs help." Victor's expression changed slightly. Not anger, not frustration, something closer to discomfort. Olivia noticed. Ethan was not challenging authority. He was reminding people of responsibility. As the afternoon continued, Olivia made a quiet decision. She needed to see one more thing. She needed to know whether Ethan's kindness continued when there was nothing obvious to gain. She approached the counter and placed a pair of expensive shoes down. "I am not sure these are right," she said. "Could someone help me find a better option?" Victor immediately stepped forward with a welcoming smile. "Of course. We would be happy to assist you." Olivia watched his entire attitude change. The tone, the posture, the attention, everything was different. Then she looked across the store at Ethan, who was helping another customer with the same patience he had shown Noah. The contrast was impossible to miss. One man saw value in the customer's situation. The other saw value in the customer's status. Olivia looked down at the shoes on the counter and realized the test she came for was no longer about finding a good employee. It was about uncovering a truth her own company needed to face. And before the day ended, she knew she would have to discover just how deep that truth went. The afternoon light moved slowly across the front windows of the shoe store, casting long reflections over the polished floor. Outside, parents continued walking through the shopping plaza with school lists in their hands, searching for everything their children needed before the first day of class. Inside, Olivia Bennett stood quietly near the counter, watching a place she owned reveal a side of itself she had never seen from a boardroom. She had spent years reviewing reports, customer surveys, and performance numbers. But numbers never showed hesitation in a child's eyes. Numbers never showed an employee deciding whether a person mattered. And numbers never showed a man like Ethan Carter. Ethan had returned to his routine. He carried boxes, organized inventory, and answered questions when customers needed help. Nothing about him suggested he believed he had done anything unusual. That was exactly what kept Olivia watching. "You know," she said to herself quietly, "most people act differently when they know someone important is looking." She looked across the store. Ethan did not even know she was there. Meanwhile, Victor Hale continued managing the floor with a confident smile. To most customers, he looked like the perfect store manager. He greeted people warmly, adjusted displays, and spoke with the polished confidence of someone who understood business. But Olivia had started noticing the moments between the words, the pauses, the choices, the people he ignored. A few minutes later, Olivia approached Ethan near the shelves. "Excuse me," she said. Ethan turned immediately. "Yes, ma'am? I am looking for shoes for my son. Something comfortable. Something that will last." Ethan smiled. "I can help you with that." He walked with her through the aisles, asking simple questions. Does he run a lot? Does he prefer a softer sole? Does he usually complain about his feet hurting? Olivia noticed something. He was not trying to sell the most expensive pair. He was trying to understand the person wearing them. "You do not seem interested in the most expensive option," she said. Ethan looked slightly surprised. "The most expensive shoe is not always the right shoe." Olivia studied him. "Then what is the right shoe?" Ethan picked up a pair and examined the inside. "The one that lets a kid forget about his shoes and focus on being a kid." For a moment, Olivia said nothing. It was a simple answer. But simple answers often revealed complicated truths. Then Victor approached with his familiar professional expression. "I hope everything is going well." Olivia smiled politely. "It is." Victor looked at Ethan. "Ethan is very helpful. Sometimes a little too helpful." The sentence sounded like praise, but Olivia heard the hidden criticism. "Too helpful?" she asked. Victor laughed softly. "You know how it is. Employees need to understand priorities. We have procedures for a reason." Ethan remained quiet. He did not defend himself. He did not argue. He simply returned the shoes to the shelf. Olivia noticed that too. He was not interested in winning a conversation. He was interested in doing the right thing. Later, as Ethan walked back toward the stockroom, Olivia followed the store layout with her eyes. She noticed the security cameras positioned above the customer areas. She noticed the employee schedules posted near the back entrance. She noticed the difference between what the company promised and what the store practiced. That evening, after most customers had left, Olivia asked Victor a simple question. "How often do you review customer interactions?" Victor answered confidently. "Regularly. Our team understands expectations." "Including how employees treat people who may not spend much money?" Olivia asked. Victor paused briefly. "Of course. Every customer matters." It was the correct answer. Almost too correct. Olivia looked toward the empty fitting area where Noah had stood earlier. She remembered the way he had held those old shoes. She remembered Ethan kneeling down without hesitation. Then she asked one final question. "Can I see today's security footage?" Victor's smile faded for just a moment before returning. "The footage?" "Yes," Olivia said calmly. "I want to understand how your store operates when nobody thinks the owner is watching." Victor looked at her carefully. He did not know who she really was. He did not know that every answer he gave was becoming part of a much bigger picture. But Olivia knew one thing now. The truth was not hidden in what people said when they were being evaluated. The truth was hidden in what they did when they believed nobody important was paying attention. The store lights hummed softly as the last customers of the evening walked toward the exit. The busy energy of the day had faded, leaving behind the quiet sounds of footsteps, closing registers, and cardboard boxes being moved back into place. But inside the office near the front counter, Olivia Bennett was about to see something that would change the way she looked at her own company. "Security footage from today?" Victor Hale asked, trying to sound surprised. "Of course. I can have my assistant prepare the best examples of our customer service." Olivia looked at him calmly. "I would prefer the regular footage. The moments nobody prepares for." For the first time that day, Victor hesitated. It was brief, almost invisible, but Olivia noticed. She had built an entire career by noticing the small details people thought did not matter. "Is there a problem?" she asked. Victor quickly smiled. "Not at all. I just want to make sure we review the right material." "The right material?" Olivia repeated softly. Sometimes the most important moments are the ones people do not choose to show. A few minutes later, they sat in front of the security monitor. The screen showed the shoe store from above. Customers moved through the aisles like small pieces on a board. Employees walked from section to section. Then the footage reached the moment Olivia had been waiting for. Noah standing near the fitting bench. The old shoes. The uncomfortable silence. Victor watching from a distance. Olivia did not speak. She watched Ethan walk over. She watched him listen. She watched him kneel down and help a child who had been made to feel like he did not belong. There was no hesitation, no performance, no audience he was trying to impress, just kindness. Victor shifted in his chair. That situation was handled, he said quickly. Olivia kept watching. By whom? Victor cleared his throat. The team. Olivia looked at him. That is interesting, because the footage shows one person stepping forward while everyone else watched. The room became quiet. The video continued. Ethan brought the shoes. Ethan checked the fit. Ethan smiled at Noah. Then the footage showed something Victor had not expected. The receipt. Ethan. Paying with his own card. Olivia leaned closer to the screen. Can you pause there? The image stopped. Ethan stood beside Noah with the shoebox in his hands. A small moment frozen in time, but it carried a much larger truth. Victor crossed his arms. It was a nice gesture, but we cannot allow employees to make decisions based only on emotions. Olivia looked at him. You think kindness is the problem? Victor answered carefully. I think consistency is important. Olivia nodded slowly. Consistency is important. I agree. She pointed toward the screen. So I want to understand something. Is this how every child is treated in this store? Victor looked uncomfortable. Our employees follow guidelines. Olivia did not answer immediately. Instead, she asked the technician to continue reviewing the footage from earlier that morning. Another clip appeared. A customer asking for assistance. Ethan helping. Another clip. An elderly woman struggling to find the right size. Ethan helping again. Another clip. A lost child near the entrance. Ethan guiding the child back to the family. Olivia watched silently. The pattern was clear. It was not one action. It was character. Meanwhile, Ethan was still in the stockroom, unaware that his choices were being reviewed. He organized shelves beneath the same fluorescent lights he worked under every day. He was not thinking about recognition. He was thinking about getting home to his daughter, making dinner, and preparing for another ordinary morning. That was what made the evidence powerful. Ethan had no reason to perform. He had no idea anyone important was watching. Olivia turned off the monitor and looked at Victor. I have one more question. Victor straightened. Yes. Olivia placed the receipt on the desk. Why is the employee with the smallest title showing the strongest understanding of our company values? Victor looked at the paper, then back at Olivia. He had spent the entire day believing he was evaluating the people around him. But now he realized something had changed. The person being evaluated was him. The store was almost empty now, but the questions inside Olivia Bennett's mind were louder than the sounds around her. She sat across from Victor Hale in the small office near the front counter. The security footage paused on the image of Ethan Carter kneeling beside Noah. A simple moment, a simple action, yet somehow it revealed everything. Victor leaned back in his chair, trying to maintain the confidence he had carried all day. I understand why that moment stood out, he said carefully. But one employee making a personal choice does not define an entire store. Olivia looked at the frozen image on the screen. You are right. One moment does not define a store. She turned toward him. Patterns do. The word stayed in the room. Patterns. That was what she was looking for. Not a perfect employee. Not a scripted answer. A pattern of behavior. Victor folded his hands together. We have strong customer service policies. Every employee receives training. Olivia nodded. Training teaches people what to say. Character shows people what to do. For a brief second, Victor had no response. Then he smiled politely. With respect, Ms. Bennett, business cannot run entirely on emotions. Olivia looked at him. I agree. She paused. But a business without humanity eventually forgets why customers trust it. Victor looked away. He did not know who he was speaking with. He did not know that the woman sitting across from him had signed the documents that created the company's customer values. He only knew she was asking questions he did not expect. The next morning, Olivia returned to the store before opening hours. She arrived alone again, wearing the same simple jacket and carrying the same handbag. She wanted one more test. Not for Ethan. For the entire system. The employees arrived one by one. The lights turned on. The registers powered up. The store slowly came back to life. Ethan walked in carrying a small lunch bag. He greeted everyone quietly before beginning his work. Morning, Ethan, another employee said. Morning, he replied with a smile. There was no change in him after the previous day. No confidence boost. No expectation that someone would recognize him. He was still the same person. Olivia noticed that. A few minutes later, she approached the counter holding a pair of shoes. I need some help, she said. A young sales associate approached first. Of course. What size are you looking for? Olivia asked a few questions about comfort, durability, and return options. The associate answered quickly but seemed focused on finishing the conversation. Then Victor stepped in. Let me help you with that. His tone changed immediately. He became warmer, more attentive. He pointed toward higher-priced options. These are very popular with our premium customers. Olivia listened carefully. What makes them better? Victor smiled. They are more aligned with the kind of image many customers want. Before Olivia could respond, Ethan walked by carrying inventory. He noticed the conversation. If comfort is the priority, there is another pair you might want to try, he said. Victor looked at him. Ethan, we are handling this. Ethan stopped. I understand. I just thought I could help. Olivia looked at Ethan. Why that pair? She asked. Ethan picked up the shoe. Because it has better support around the heel, and the material holds up well for daily use. A person should not have to pay extra just to feel comfortable. Olivia looked at Victor, then back at Ethan. Another small difference. Another piece of the pattern. After the customer left, Victor approached Ethan near the shelves. You need to understand something. Good intentions are not enough. Ethan nodded. I know. Victor seemed surprised. You do. Ethan placed the box on the shelf. Yes, good intentions need responsibility behind them. Olivia heard the exchange from a distance. She realized Ethan was not simply kind. He was thoughtful. He understood boundaries. He understood work. He understood respect. That was why his actions mattered. Later that afternoon, Olivia reviewed one more document. It was an internal employee complaint file. The name at the top caught her attention. Ethan Carter. She opened it carefully. Inside was a complaint written months earlier. Not against Ethan. About him. The details were simple. An employee had reported that Ethan was too focused on helping customers outside his assigned duties. Olivia read the sentence twice. Then she looked up. The person the system had labeled as a problem might have been the person protecting the very values the company claimed to have. And now Olivia needed to find out why someone like Ethan had been pushed into the background for so long. The employee complaint file remained open on Olivia Bennett's screen, but the words felt less like a complaint and more like a warning. She read the document again carefully. Ethan Carter had not been accused of breaking rules. He had not been accused of disrespect or poor performance. The concern was much simpler. He spent too much time helping people. Olivia leaned back in her chair and looked through the office window toward the store floor. Ethan was there, arranging boxes and checking inventory numbers. He had no idea that his name was on a report sitting in front of the company's chief executive officer. He had no idea that the same quality that made customers remember him had once been considered a problem. Interesting, Olivia whispered. She closed the file and decided there was one more thing she needed to understand. Complaint could reveal a problem, but it could also reveal a misunderstanding. She needed the full story. Olivia asked the Human Resources Department to send the original records connected to Ethan's file. A few minutes later, more documents appeared on her screen. Performance reviews, customer feedback, manager notes. The pattern became clearer with every page. Customers frequently mentioned Ethan by name. They described him as patient, respectful, and willing to help. But management notes focused on something else. Needs stronger boundaries. Should prioritize efficiency. Spends excessive time assisting non-target customers. Olivia stopped at that sentence. Non-target customers. A phrase that sounded professional but carried a dangerous assumption. She looked through the window again. Ethan was helping a father compare 2 pairs of shoes for his daughter. He was not pushing the most expensive option. He was asking questions. Which one feels better? He asked the girl. The one you can wear all day. The father smiled. Most people here just tell us what is popular. Ethan shrugged. Popular does not always mean right. Olivia watched quietly. She understood something important. Ethan was not ignoring business. He was protecting trust. Later that morning, Olivia asked Victor to join her for another conversation. This time, she brought the documents with her. Victor sat down confidently. I assume you found everything you needed. Olivia placed the papers on the desk. I found something interesting. Victor looked at the pages. About Ethan? Yes. Victor nodded. He is a good person. I have never said otherwise. Olivia studied him. But, Victor smiled slightly. But a store cannot operate based on feelings. Olivia tapped the report. This says customers appreciate him. Victor responded quickly. Customers like him because he gives extra attention. But extra attention takes time. And what does that time create? Olivia asked. Victor paused. I am not sure what you mean. Loyalty, Olivia said. Trust. A reason for someone to return. Victor looked uncomfortable. He was not used to defending the idea that kindness could have value. We need employees who understand the bigger picture, he said. Olivia nodded slowly. That is exactly what I am trying to understand. She closed the file. What is the bigger picture? Victor looked at her. Growing the business. Olivia replied calmly. And who is the business growing for? The question stayed between them. Victor did not answer immediately. Outside the office, Ethan walked past carrying a box of new school shoes. He stopped when he noticed a young boy sitting alone near the entrance. The boy was waiting for his parent, who was speaking with an employee at the counter. Ethan walked over. Everything okay? He asked. The boy nodded. I am just waiting. Ethan smiled. That can feel like a long time. Want to help me count these boxes while you wait? The boy smiled and followed him a few steps. Olivia saw the moment through the office window. Another small act. Another choice made without an audience usually means someone is doing something for the right reason. Then her attention moved to another document attached to the report. A customer satisfaction summary from the previous month. One section was marked differently from the others. A handwritten note from a customer. Olivia picked it up. The message was short. I came here because of the shoes. I came back because of how your employee treated my child. Olivia slowly placed the note down. The evidence was no longer just one receipt or one camera recording. It was a history, a collection of moments proving that Ethan's kindness was not an exception. It was who he was. And now Olivia had to decide what she would do with a truth her own company had failed to see. The handwritten note remained on Olivia Bennett's desk long after she finished reading it. It was only one sentence from one customer, but somehow it carried more truth than the hundreds of pages of reports she had reviewed over the years. I came here because of the shoes. I came back because of how your employee treated my child. Olivia looked at the words again. In business meetings, people often talked about customer loyalty as if it was created by discounts, advertising, or perfect displays. But this note revealed something different. Loyalty was built in moments people remembered. Moments when they felt respected. Moments when someone made them feel like they mattered. Olivia closed the file and walked back onto the store floor. The morning rush had returned. Parents searched through shelves, children tried on new shoes, and employees moved quickly between customers. Ethan Carter was once again doing what he always did, helping, not because anyone was watching, not because he expected anything, just because he believed it was the right thing to do. Olivia approached him while he organized a shelf of children's sneakers. "Ethan," she said. He turned around. "Yes, ma'am. Can I ask you something?" Ethan nodded. "Of course." Olivia looked at the shelves around them. "Why do you care so much?" Ethan seemed confused by the question. "About what?" "About people you do not know. Customers, children, strangers." Ethan thought for a moment. He did not answer quickly. That was something Olivia noticed about him. He never rushed to give the answer people wanted to hear. "Because I know what it feels like when nobody notices you," he finally said. The words were quiet, but they carried weight. Olivia listened carefully. Ethan continued, "A few years ago, after my wife passed away, there were a lot of days when I felt like I was just trying to get through the next hour. I was a single dad trying to raise my daughter and keep everything together. Sometimes people looked at me like I was already defeated." He looked down at the shoes in his hands. "But there were also people who showed me small kindness when they did not have to. A stranger holding a door. Someone buying my daughter a meal when I was short on money. Small things. They reminded me that people still cared." Olivia remained silent. She understood now. Ethan's kindness was not a habit. Came from experience. From knowing what it felt like to need compassion. "You never told anyone that," she said. Ethan shrugged. "It was not important." Olivia looked at him. "Most people would think it was." Ethan smiled slightly. "Maybe. But helping someone should not become important only after people hear your story." The answer stayed with her. Meanwhile, near the front counter, Victor Hale watched their conversation from a distance. He could not hear every word, but he could see Olivia's attention. That worried him. He walked over carefully. "Everything okay?" he asked. Olivia turned. "Everything is fine." Victor looked at Ethan. "Ethan is a good employee. He just needs to remember that there are systems for a reason." Olivia studied Victor's expression. Still polite. Still professional. Still hiding behind careful words. "Systems are important," Olivia said. "But what happens when a system stops recognizing good people?" Victor smiled politely. "That is why managers exist. To make decisions." Olivia nodded. "And how do managers know when they are making the right decisions?" Victor did not answer immediately. That pause told her more than his words could. Later that day, Olivia returned to her temporary office space and reviewed the final pieces of information, the receipt, the security footage, the employee reports, the customer notes, everything connected. But one question remained. She had proven Ethan's character. She had identified the problem inside the store. Now she needed to understand how far the issue went. She opened the company records and searched for similar complaints across other locations. One after another, reports appeared. Customers mentioning feeling ignored. Employees describing pressure to prioritize certain shoppers. Managers receiving praise for numbers but not for how they treated people. Olivia stared at the screen. The problem was larger than one store. Ethan had not revealed a single bad decision. He had revealed a hidden weakness in the entire system. And now the woman everyone thought was just another customer knew exactly what she had to do next. She would stop observing. It was time to reveal why she had been watching all along. The next morning, before the store doors opened, Olivia Bennett stood alone in the quiet showroom. The lights above the aisles slowly came on one row at a time, revealing shelves filled with new shoes waiting for another busy day. To anyone else, it looked like an ordinary store preparing for customers. But Olivia knew she was standing in the middle of a much larger problem. She had come looking for one answer. She had found many more questions. She picked up the folder containing everything she had collected. The receipt from Ethan's personal purchase. The security footage showing how he treated Noah. The customer notes praising his patience. The internal reports criticizing him for spending too much time helping people. The information was no longer a collection of separate moments. It was a story about what happened when a company's values existed on paper but disappeared in practice. Good intentions are easy to advertise, Olivia said quietly to herself, but difficult to protect. The sound of footsteps interrupted her thoughts. Ethan walked into the store carrying his lunch bag and a small stack of inventory sheets. He looked exactly the same as he had every other morning. No confidence from being noticed. No expectation that something would change. He simply smiled and greeted the employees around him. Olivia watched carefully. The man who had revealed the biggest weakness in her company had no idea he had done anything unusual. A few minutes later, Victor Hale arrived. He entered with the same polished appearance and controlled confidence. He greeted employees, checked the front display, and reviewed the day's schedule. To anyone watching, he looked like a capable manager. That was what made the situation complicated. Victor was not careless. He was not openly cruel. He was someone who had convinced himself that his choices were reasonable. Olivia approached him near the office. "Victor, I would like to talk about the customer experience reports." Victor smiled. "Of course. I assume you have questions about the store performance."
I do, Olivia replied.
"Several." She placed a few documents on the desk. Victor looked through them. "I see. Do you?" Olivia asked. Victor looked up. "I think I understand the concern. Some employees naturally have different approaches." Olivia nodded. "Different approaches?" "Yes. Ethan is very compassionate. That is a good quality. But managers have to think about efficiency." Olivia studied him. "What does efficiency mean to you?" Victor answered without hesitation. "Serving the most customers in the shortest amount of time while maintaining profitability." Olivia nodded slowly. "And where does respect fit into that?" Victor paused. "Respect is part of good service." "Part of it," Olivia repeated. "Not the foundation?" Victor looked uncomfortable. "I did not say that. You did not have to." The room became quiet. Olivia did not raise her voice. She did not need to. The facts were already speaking. She opened another document. "This report says customers who receive personal attention are more likely to return." Victor glanced at the page. "Yes, but those situations have to be balanced." Olivia looked at him. "Balanced against what?" Victor hesitated. "Time." Olivia closed the folder. "That is the difference between us, Victor. You see time spent helping someone. I see trust being created." Victor leaned back. "With respect, that is a very idealistic view of business." Olivia smiled slightly. "Maybe, but I have learned something over the years. Businesses rarely fail because they care too much about people." Victor looked away. He did not know why her words carried so much certainty. He did not know that the person questioning him had built the company he represented. Later that day, Olivia asked the store technician to prepare the final security review. She wanted one more piece of confirmation before making any decisions. The footage showed the same pattern again. Ethan helping Noah. Ethan assisting customers. Ethan staying late to organize misplaced inventory without being asked. Then another clip appeared. It showed Victor speaking with employees after the store closed weeks earlier. His words were calm, but the meaning was clear. Focus on customers who are most likely to make large purchases. We cannot spend all day on every situation. Olivia watched the screen silently. There it was. Not a mistake. Not a misunderstanding. A belief. A belief that had slowly shaped the entire store. She turned off the monitor and looked at the reflection of herself in the dark screen. The final decision was no longer about one employee or one manager. It was about what kind of company she wanted to lead. And before the day ended, everyone in that store would finally learn who had been watching them all along.